Hello, and welcome to this T-Level Tactics video for the T-Level Digital Support Services course. We're looking at our 8th topic for the Business Context Unit, which is providing value. So, in this video, we're going to outline the concept of value in IT service management, which we've looked at briefly before, but we're going to go into more depth this time. We're going to explain how we can provide value to end users, and also how we provide value to customers as well. And if you're unsure of the difference between customers and end users, then I recommend that you take a look at the previous video, Digital Needs, before moving on any further. Now, before we start, these videos are not endorsed or sponsored by any education institution or qualification awarding body. And T-Level Tactics videos should not be used as a replacement to any classroom learning, as the discussion and practical activities with peers and your lecturer will help to expand your thinking and comprehension. Instead, these materials are best used for preparation or revision to reinforce any learning. And if you're studying the T-Level Digital Business Services course, this content's good for you as well, but it will be more contextualized towards IT support roles. Okay, let's get started on this concept of value. So we've looked at the concept of value briefly in video 5, Digital Value. And we talked about how it could be created through cost savings, streamlining of processes, new opportunities for businesses and organizations, and by increasing revenue. Essentially, it's anything that will be a benefit for the business. But there's more to it than that. Now, I've mentioned before about ITIL, and ITIL stands for Information Technology Infrastructure Library. ITIL is a worldwide recognized framework for IT service management, and it's used by businesses and organizations such as NASA, Microsoft, HSBC, Spotify, and more. And I mentioned right at the beginning of the course that you can take a look at the textbook published by Axelos, ITIL Foundation, ITIL 4 edition. And within there, we looked at a more specific definition for what value means. It was the perceived benefits, usefulness, and importance of something within a business or organization. That really puts into context that value isn't just about money. Now, there's a useful diagram in that book on what value really means and what the creation of value should do for a business or organization. And it's represented by these scales. And it's essentially saying that these things should have more of an impact than these other things. Let's have a look at what that means. Essentially, value is when we support outcomes and objectives of the business, where we remove costs and remove any risks to the business or process as well, as opposed to creating negative effects to outcomes and objectives, as opposed to introducing new costs to the business, and as opposed to introducing new risks to the business. Now, I know that seems maybe quite obvious now, but it's important that value is those three things on the right-hand side: supporting objectives, removing costs, and removing risks. ITIL uses three concepts to explore the creation of value: the service value system, the 4 dimensions model, and the service value chain. We're going to take a quick look at these three concepts. It's important to remember that at the moment you don't need to know the details. You certainly don't need to remember them, but you just need to be aware of the ideas, as regardless of your role in IT support and regardless of if the organization you work with uses ITIL, other frameworks and other organizations are still going to use the core concepts. Let's look at the service value system first. It's an overview of how ITIL should work, and it looks a bit like this. At the heart of it, you have the service value chain, which we're going to look at in a moment. And that's surrounded by governance and practices, which essentially means the policies and procedures in place by the organization and their methods of working. That's the practices bit. And around that, we have the guiding principles of ITIL and this concept of continual improvement, which we'll come back to in a moment. On either side, we've got opportunity and demand on the left and value on the right. And this essentially shows the process where if we have a demand or an opportunity for a new product, that we use the service value chain in order to create value. The second model is the 4 dimensions model. And parts of this may look familiar, as around the outside of it, we've got all of those different factors that can affect a business or organization: political, economical, environmental, legal, technological, and social. They should look familiar. Where we've got these numbered segments, we have organizations and people, information and technology, partners and suppliers, and value streams and processes. These represent the different aspects of an organization. And at the heart of it all are the products and services that we're providing in order to create, again, that value at the core of it. Now, I've mentioned the service value chain a few times, and this is essentially the process that makes ITIL work. It looks a little complicated at first, but I'll talk through it. On the left-hand side, we have demand. Now, this is either a demand from customers or our end users for a new product or service, either something we can sell or something that the organization needs to use internally. The middle section shows the idea that whatever we do, we need to have an effective plan. That's the very top segment of the diagram. If it's an already existing product or service, instead we're looking at the bottom bit where we're improving that product or service. And in order to do that, we need to engage. That's the first box there. We need to engage with our customer or end user in order to identify their needs or requirements for the new product or service. Once we've identified that, we can move on. We can design a new product or service and a method to transition the user or customer onto it. We can obtain and build the necessary hardware and or software that we need to deliver this, before coming up with an effective plan to deliver the product or service and support end users with its use. And altogether, all of those steps create our product or service that we're delivering, which in turn, on the far right of the diagram, will hopefully mean that we're creating value for the organization. Now, at the bottom of the diagram, we've got these arrows that lead from value back to demand. And that represents the concept of continual improvement in ITIL, where if the customer feels like something needs to change about this product or service, we'll start the process again, where we'll engage with them to identify what needs to be done before going through the other steps to deliver that change and create further value. Now, if you're a Patreon member, this is a great time to have a go at task 1 on the task sheet. It's just some quick fire questions on ITIL, and you may want to look at the video again in order to answer some of those questions and give you a bit of help. You could also use the internet if you want to, but you shouldn't really spend any longer than 10 minutes on this task before coming back and moving on to part 2. Okay, let's take a look at how we can create value for end users. So, besides the product or service that we're providing, how can we continue to provide value to end users within organizations? How are users going to feel that they're benefiting from the product? Well, part of this is going to come in the form of effective support for users. And this comes in different forms. First of all, we'll have Tier 0 support. This is essentially where users can help themselves to resolve issues. They could be using guides or knowledge base articles that they can access whenever they need to without actually going any further to an IT support department. If that doesn't resolve their issue, they should be able to access first line support. And this is, if you're looking to get into IT support, this is likely one of the first roles you might take. This is where users can access online or phone remote support for small queries, simple issues, and guidance. And first-line support will also be able to triage any issues that could potentially be larger. They'll then be able to escalate those problems to a different line. The next one being second line support. And this is where you'll find technicians and engineers that can provide more in-depth support for more complicated issues, or potentially on-site, in-person support for the user. Now, sometimes problems and issues can be even bigger than that, and there could be a larger problem with a product or service that we're providing. And that's where third line support comes in. This is for those in-depth, quite complicated issues, and where we may need to involve a system designer or administrator. Now, all of this is designed to prevent and minimize downtime. We've mentioned that before, but downtime is any time that a system is unavailable, where staff will be less productive and potentially delay the work of other staff and departments in the organization. All issues should be escalated through the support tiers in a timely manner to make sure they're resolved quickly and effectively. So, for example, if an issue takes longer than 10 minutes to resolve at first line, that could be an indicator where it needs to be escalated to second line support for someone with more knowledge to have a go at it and resolve the issue. We can also create value for users by testing any new systems, products and services for quality and stability before we deploy them out to the customer. If we need to do maintenance and updates, we can prepare these ahead of time and deploy them out of hours to ensure seamless operation and, again, minimize that downtime. And of course, around all of this, should something go wrong, we should have an effective disaster recovery plan to make sure the business can carry on working as normal while we resolve any issues. And we'll look again at disaster recovery plans in a later video in more detail. Now, for those of you with the Patreon task sheet, this is a good time to have a go at task 2 on IT support. So head back there, pause the video here, spend 10 minutes on the task, and then come back and we'll look at the last part of the video. Okay, now for the last section, we're looking at how we can create value for customers. And customers are, well, people external to the business. We might be selling a product or service to people outside of our organization. So let's imagine that you have a business building custom computers. How can you make sure that you're providing value to your customers? Well, let's look at the support available to them. It'll be similar to end user support, but you need to make sure you're providing efficient, accessible, and timely support to your customers. After all, these are everyday people who are giving you their hard-earned money, and they want to feel like they've got the best product possible and the best support to make sure it works. Again, you could use online knowledge base articles to enable users to help themselves. We're starting to see businesses using AI chat to enable users to communicate problems in simple language and get fast responses. AI can also direct users to relevant support articles. However, this doesn't always solve the problem, and sometimes customers aren't comfortable using those services. So you need to ensure you have support staff available to escalate any issues to. And again, this could be in the form of online support, remote support, or you may also offer some in-person support to the user as well. It might be that if it's a piece of hardware, that you'll need to allow the customer to send that hardware back to you for repair or replacement. And you may want to think about that process and how that will affect your customer too. Essentially, we need to enable users to access support in multiple formats that they can access whenever they need. We can use web articles, we could use a smartphone app, we can use online chat, combine them all together to make sure they feel like whenever something goes wrong, they've got access to the support that they require. There's also this concept of value for money. Now, we did mention this briefly, and we mentioned how value isn't just about money, but when consumers spend lots of money, they want to make sure that they've got the best product for it. So can you justify the cost of your product? Customers have more access to product information than ever, and they're easily compared online for price and features. Customers will use price comparison sites to ensure they're getting the best deal possible, regardless of whether it's IT, hardware or software, or something else. They could use Uswitch, Kelku, or if they're using Amazon to do their shopping, Camel. And you may want to have a look at those 3 sites because it will show you exactly the kind of information that customers can get. Remember, if your product doesn't look like good value for money, there are plenty of other products out there that consumers can choose. So you have got a job to justify what value your product brings, and the support you provide will be a part of that value. In addition to the web articles and online chats you could provide, what social media presence have you got? This is something that customers seem to love at the moment. They love to feel a part of a community. Can customers message you or interact with other users on Twitter or a Facebook or Instagram page? Some businesses and brands are also now expanding to have Reddit and Discord communities to allow customers to share their experiences with their products with other people. Customers really like to feel that they're a part of something exclusive. Okay, it's time for that third task on the task sheet. If you're a Patreon member, head back there, have a go at task 3. This one will take you slightly longer, about 30 to 45 minutes. We can compare the value created between end users and customers. Pause the video here, have a go at that, then come back. We'll wrap up with what we've looked at in this video and a short exam question. Okay, so in this video, we've looked at the concept of value in IT service management and an exploration of ITIL and the various different concepts involved. We've explained the value provided to end users, and we've also taken a look at how we can provide value to customers as well. So you should be ready now to have a go at this short exam question. A business is upgrading all of their computers from Windows 10 to Windows 11. They're concerned that staff will be unfamiliar with the changes made between the two operating systems. You should outline 3 ways that an IT support team could support users through this change. There are 3 marks available here. And that brings us to the end of the video. In the next video, we're going to take a look at the concept of change management and what's involved in it. So make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel to be notified when that video comes out. And of course, if you haven't looked at the Patreon yet, head over there and take a look at the exclusive content available for Patreon members. Thanks for watching and see you next time.